Donald Trump made a "my lips are sealed" gesture outside his civil fraud trial today, but once he got on the stand, he was anything but quiet. The tension inside that courtroom was intense, with Donald Trump constantly pushing and challenging the judge. Trump looked ready for a fight as he stared directly at the cameras. From the moment he took the stand, he clashed with Judge Arthur Engoron, giving long speeches instead of simple yes or no answers. "This is a very unfair trial," Trump complained. "Control your client," the judge told Trump's attorneys. "If you can't, I will." At one point, the judge snapped at lawyer Alina Habba and told her to sit down after she argued that Trump should be allowed to continue his long answers. Outside the courthouse, she fired back. "I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at. I had a judge slamming the table," she said. "Let me be very clear. I don't tolerate that in my life, and I'm not going to tolerate it here." A sitting judge looked Donald Trump directly in the face and told him to stop talking. And the moment Trump opened his mouth inside that courtroom, everything started falling apart. Not because the judge was unfair, not because the trial was rigged, but because Donald Trump, a man who has spent 50 years performing confidence and control, walked into the one place in America where performance does not count as evidence. Things became so heated that less than an hour after testimony started, the judge called for a 15-minute break to cool things down. But when Trump returned, his attitude had not changed. He called the Attorney General a fraud and called the entire case a political witch hunt. "Because it's a scam," Trump said. When he finished testifying, he declared the day of victory. "You saw what I had to say today, and it was very conclusive," Trump told reporters. "Everything we did was absolutely right." He may feel more confident because of new polls showing him ahead of President Biden in the 2024 race. But what happened inside Judge Arthur Engoron's courtroom was one of the most psychologically revealing moments I have ever seen from a defendant in any legal case. Here is what most of the coverage completely missed. And once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. This case was never only about inflated property values and financial fraud. That was just the legal surface. Underneath, it was something much deeper. A man's lifelong relationship with his own image and what happens when an institution finally refuses to accept that image as reality. Trump and his children denied wrongdoing. And while Trump had only been on the stand for about an hour, the judge already accused him of treating the courtroom like a political rally. The judge repeatedly urged Trump's lawyers to control their client. Let's go to NBC's Vaughn Hilliard outside the courthouse. "Vaughn, the courtroom took a break this morning after a very tense first 90 minutes of Donald Trump testifying under oath during questioning from the New York Attorney General's office. Much of the testimony included interruptions from Judge Engoron, who already fined Trump twice for violating a gag order after attacking a member of the judge's staff. Today, the judge criticized Trump for turning his testimony into what he called a political rally instead of answering the actual questions being asked. At one point, the judge ordered Trump's own attorneys, Chris Kise and Alina Habba, to sit down after they argued that Trump should be allowed to answer questions however he wanted. They argued that this was an unusual situation because Trump is both a former president and, in their words, a future president, and they believed he should be allowed to explain his own narrative under oath. Trump called the trial unfair and politically motivated, which again brought criticism from the judge. The judge repeatedly suggested that attorney Chris Kise speak privately with Trump because he needed to answer the questions directly. The drama you saw everywhere, the arguments, the speeches, the angry moments, the walkout, none of it was a loss of control. Every part of it was the strategy, and I want to explain exactly what it is going to cost him. Yesterday, the defense team's own witness, former Trump Organization executive Jeffrey McConney, who is also a co-defendant in the case, may have connected Trump directly to the alleged exaggeration of property values. According to Business Insider, McConney was called by the defense, but during cross-examination by lawyers from the Attorney General's office, he connected Trump directly to the fraud allegations still being decided in the non-jury trial. McConney was shown a draft of Trump's 2014 net worth statement. On the top of the document was a handwritten note saying, "DJT to get final review." McConney confirmed that he wrote the note. The Attorney General's office says that same financial statement contained $3.5 billion in exaggerated values. McConney also became emotional on the witness stand and said the pressure from the investigations eventually pushed him to retire after 35 years with the company. Joining the conversation was New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig, MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Rubin, and New York Times editorial board member Mara Gay. Susan, how did Jeffrey McConney's testimony look to you? Well, it definitely wasn't a good day for Donald Trump or the Trump Organization, Craig said. There's a document showing the 2014 Statement of Financial Condition, and right at the top it says DJE to get final review. That directly connects Trump to the document. Trump has tried to distance himself from these statements. He says he had accountants and lawyers handling everything. But the Trump Organization always described itself as a tightly controlled company where Trump personally oversaw many details, even signing checks himself before entering the White House. Then, when it becomes legally useful, suddenly the company claims Trump wasn't involved in the details of financial statements and relied on others. McConney's testimony made it much harder to argue that Trump had no connection to these financial documents. Lisa Rubin added that Trump had already admitted this himself earlier in testimony. She quoted directly from the transcript. "Is it correct that you reviewed the financial statements from 2011 through 2017 before they became final?" Trump answered, "Yeah, I would look at them." Rubin explained that this alone already tied Trump directly to the statements. But she also pointed out something important. This was the defense team's own witness. And instead of helping Trump, he added more evidence connecting Trump to the documents. Mara Gay explained another key point about the Trump Organization. Trump surrounded himself with people who were sometimes competent, but always loyal. She said the people hired to protect Trump may have accidentally helped expose him instead. And unlike Trump's usual style of avoiding written records, this document put it plainly in writing. DJT to get final review. Business Insider also reported another important handwritten note from the 2015 draft financial statement. This computation also includes forecasted deals that have not signed yet. Now let's talk about what actually happened in that courtroom, because the video clips explain it better than any headline. Listen carefully to how the judge gave his warning. He was not simply scolding Trump. He was creating a legal record for the penalty phase. The judge clearly warned Trump's legal team, on the record, that if Trump continued refusing to answer questions directly, there could be negative inferences used when deciding penalties. That was not just frustration. That was a legal tool. The judge was warning everyone in that courtroom that Trump's behavior could directly increase the financial penalties against him. Not bad headlines. Not bad optics. Actual money. Trump's own lawyers could not stop it. When court staff asked Trump's attorneys if they could guarantee their client would follow basic testimony rules, they could not promise that. That moment revealed everything. Trump's own legal team effectively admitted that they could not control him on the witness stand. And here is the detail most coverage failed to explain clearly enough because it completely changes how you understand everything that happened. Trump was not there to argue whether fraud happened. That had already been decided. Months earlier, Judge Engoron ruled in writing that Trump had repeatedly exaggerated the value of his properties and assets to banks and insurance companies. Not by a small amount, by billions of dollars. That ruling stayed in place. The trial everyone was watching was not about guilt. It was about penalties. The only major question left was, how much would it cost him? And Trump spent his entire time on the stand making that number potentially larger. Think about it like this. Imagine someone tells a bank their house is worth $2 million when every appraiser says it is worth only $400,000. The bank gives them a loan based on the inflated number. Later, a court decides that fraud happened. The next hearing is not about whether they lied. It is about how much they owe because of the lie. That was the stage Trump was standing on while giving long political speeches. He declared himself innocent in a proceeding where the fraud ruling already existed. And every time he refused to answer directly, the judge could legally interpret that behavior as a sign that truthful answers would hurt him. That concept has a legal name, consciousness of guilt. And Trump demonstrated it repeatedly on the record through non-answers, speeches, and constant interruptions. His own legal team standing there, unable to promise he would follow basic courtroom rules, told the judge something important. This defendant believes the rules do not apply to him. Now here's the part that makes this psychologically fascinating instead of only legally important. Trump walked into the courtroom already performing strength and control. The zipped lips gesture outside the courthouse was part of that performance. Then, less than 30 minutes later, he launched into the exact kind of rant that got him cut off by the judge. Those moments were not contradictions. They were different scenes for different audiences. One moment was for supporters who wanted to see restraint. The other was for supporters who wanted to see defiance. Both were recorded. Both were distributed online. Both served a purpose. This is not a story about a man suddenly losing his temper. This is the story of a man who spent 50 years inside rooms where his word was the final authority. He owned the buildings, so he decided what they were worth. He ran the company, so he defined success. He starred in the TV show, so he delivered the final judgment. For decades, Trump operated in environments where his narrative dominated because he controlled the system around him. A courtroom is different. In a courtroom, the judge controls the room. The evidence controls the narrative. You do not give speeches. You answer questions. And if you refuse, the penalties can increase. Trump expected the same thing that always worked for him before. Talk loudly enough, confidently enough, forcefully enough, and eventually the room gives in. But this room did not give in. When the judge told Trump's lawyers, "Control your client," it was more than a courtroom warning. For Trump, it was something unfamiliar, a room that would not bend to his authority. And there was one more detail that almost no news outlet gave enough attention to. All of this happened on the same morning police responded to a bomb threat at Judge Engoron's home. Not a vague threat. A bomb threat targeting the judge's private residence. Judge Engoron still drove to the courthouse. He still took the bench. He still ran the hearing. He still enforced the rules. And by the end of the day, most of the country was told this was simply another dramatic clash between Trump and a judge. But underneath all the headlines was something much bigger. The real cost of maintaining a courtroom where the rules apply equally, even when the defendant is one of the most powerful and famous men in the world. Hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell because we are following every major development in this case as it happens. See you in the next one. Stay safe.